Hi, how's it going? Um, I think I just want to start off by saying um, a lot of the things that I do say are kind of going to sound maybe counterintuitive, and then they start to become obvious as the more I explain what's happening here and what's going on. Um, and as we all know and lived through, ever since the virus has begun, there were lots of complications with people being able to get to work, should they go to work, mask mandates, and all these things, many of which I agreed with at first because it seemed like such a catastrophic emergency crisis as the pandemic kind of unfolded. Um, Now, people can easily go and tell you that, oh, you don't know how to do research or this and that. There's no such thing as doing research if you don't look this up and do that. Well, a lot of people who say that are just kind of exploiting the fact that they don't know how to continue research. I don't know how much they've learned or paid attention to in school, but it doesn't really take too much digging into to find a lot of these causalities and a lot of the proof and evidence of what goes on around you. A lot of people like to be very ignorant because it's easy and it's simple, and yet they often seem to have such strong opinions. But you can't really have a strong opinion if you don't back it up with, facts. Um, I've done lots of research. I'm not going to pretend I'm a professional or a doctor or grade A economist or anything like that. But being May 10th of 2021, you kind of just have to observe what goes on around you. And I don't know if the people that are listening to this right now or the people in the future, um, a lot has happened, and many people have been forced onto unemployment, and a lot of the people who have lost their jobs had a hard time getting unemployment. I've been on unemployment for a while now, over a year. I work in the entertainment business. I'm an audio engineer, a professional audio engineer of 20 years. I've been doing it since I was a teenager. My father had equipment. He taught me. He used to be a radio producer in Nashville. I live in New York, and ever since I was a teenager, I kind of got right into it. B-52s was the first concert that I worked on at the age of 17. I was hired by a professional audio company. Um, and one of the hardest hit businesses was the entertainment business, because not only is that always involved mass amounts of people gathering together, but in all honesty, and I'll admit this, it's one of the least useful when a pandemic comes into the situation. Um, and I admit that, there's a lot more important things to do than hosting concerts and putting together concerts and doing audio. Um, but now, after a year and over a year, almost 2 years, you know, well, over a year and a half anyway, uh, you got to put two and two together and go, wait a second, how is everybody going to help this economy if nobody's working? And so what they did was they put in a huge amount of money. I mean, I guess you could say there was multiple programs and bills they passed to try to help, you know, stimulate the economy. It went from one stimulus check, people were happy for, two stimulus checks, which was, I guess, something we had to deal with. Three stimulus checks started to make people question about what's going on, and now they're pushing for a fourth stimulus check. Not only are they pushing for a fourth stimulus check, they want a stimulus check every month after that. What do stimulus checks do, and what are they for and designed for? Well, it's in the name, stimulus. It's to stimulate. It's to stimulate the economy and the market. How does that work? Well, if there's no money fluctuating from people not working and people trying to save their money, you need something to continue to push the market. You need spending to happen so that money can spread out throughout the market and throughout businesses, and come back and kind of, recycle and recycle and help the machine kind of grow and grow. Um, what happens when it doesn't really work? The machine starts to slow down, and the bigger the machine has gotten, the more devastating it becomes. And we're starting to see all sorts of consequences arise from this right now. We're seeing the job market get hit like we've never seen before. We're starting to see the impacts that it's having. We're starting to see all this money that they've put into these stimulus packages starting to affect inflation. We're seeing the artificial pump that all these stimulus checks had on the market start to really take effect now. We're starting to see all the markets take a nosedive. And what do they want to do? They want to push more stimulus checks. This is unhealthy in every way. These are artificial pumps, and they're not designed to last. Now that we've gone this far, which is over the threshold, over a year of pumping in stimulus checks and trying to make the reserve pump out this free money for the government so they can spread it across, is one thing. But now taking the vast majority of this, over 90% of all this money, and spreading out across the world to foreign countries is not helping our economy. In fact, we got less money than a lot of other countries did, and we're taxpayers for this money. This is what's having dire consequences. We're seeing lumber right now at this time over 300%, or reach the 300 percentile of what it was a year ago. We're seeing that with food is going up. We're seeing that with everything. Supply and demand has a huge impact, but when we have negative results, we end up with stale surpluses that go nowhere, and we end up with shortages that cannot feed everybody in more ways than one, whether that's with money, with food, or any other affecting element that's taken into account. Now, this is all the recipe for disaster, because now we have all these stimulus checks and unemployment paying these people more so than a lot of them would even get at their own jobs. So now why would people want to go back? But not even is it preventing people from going back, which it is, because people realize they make more money this way. But it's also preventing this money from moving, and it's having a very, very, very negative consequence to everything. We're seeing our economy, we're seeing collapse. We're seeing, inflation rise, and people's bank accounts, the interest can't keep up with inflation. Like I said in the previous video, people are holding on to money because they're afraid, and they're also afraid to go back to work. A lot of this has damaged people, unfortunately, mentally and spiritually in a lot of ways, to where now they're, if you thought people were bad at one point, hypochondriacs and other people who are afraid of germs and getting sick, or people that are sick and can't afford to get sick because their bodies are no longer built for it, or they have immune deficiencies, they're scared, and rightfully so, because they don't know what's happening, especially with the media constantly lying and constantly lying. People care more about gratification, it seems, than actual facts as well. It's really important to take all this into context with what's happening. It's not even only just happening here, it's happening across the world. We're seeing the market take all sorts of losses, all sorts of hits. And as history has shown in the past, and I hate to jump to such catastrophic conclusions, but what's the one thing that always gets us out of mass depressions? It's war. And what's happening right now, but in the Asian seas and China and Japan seas, there is growing tension between China and all these other countries. I'd really like to get into the military aspect in another video, which I might do in a following video. But to take all this into account, you have to realize that when we see certain indexes go up being pumped by stimulus check after stimulus check, these are artificial booms. And not only have I mentioned the K-shaped recovery in the past, which is the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, we're seeing massive devastation across the board. Now, it's easy to assume when you're not really sure of what's going on and you have media telling you that, oh, things are okay, but even the media is getting to the point where they can't even cover up what's going on. And this administration is destroying everything that we had and everything left. If you think the depression in the past was bad, we've never seen the likes of this before, even in the early 1900s, when the Spanish flu came through, during a world war that ended up killing, more people than in the war itself. Um, I think that's an indication of a good recovery, because we did recover. The 20s were fantastic when it came to money and value. And then shortly after that, we saw the boom bust, and then we saw the Great Depression, and then what happened after that was World War II, and that helped boost the economy. Um, so it's getting to the point where it almost seems like one of the only ways to really recover from this is to head to war and start manufacturing, um, for the military industrial complex, which is something that liberals say they hate, but they seem to back it more than anything right now. I have to admit, I used to be on more of the left side until I started doing research and history and listened to the loudest voices who really had the biggest hearts. Even Malcolm X started seeing the Democrat Party and the liberals for what they really were. And a lot of people who are liberals and Democrats don't really understand the full concept. They think this is, you just get to pick and choose what side you're on because one side seems mean. But it really has to come down to logic and straightforward, bluntness. You know, I'd also want to make more videos about history of Republicans and Democrats and kind of contrast and show you exactly where we are and how not much has changed since. There was never a great switch between the parties. One side just lost, and those were the Confederate Democrats, not the Republicans. Um, so we're seeing very, very devastating things. I would say, as advice to you guys, consider what would be really important to hold on to. And I don't mean to be so pessimistic, but you're going to need food and you're going to need supplies to last a while. I remember, I grew up with military in my family, so I'm very used to my whole life, eating rations and getting all sorts of knickknacks from the army, shooting guns and all these things. I would suggest to you that, try to get a lot of, shelf stable, preservable food, and emergency supplies, because when stuff hits the fan, you're going to really wish you had. I remember when this COVID situation first took place. The year before that and the year before that, people thought I was weird for, stocking up on emergency food because, oh, you'll never have that. Emergencies seem so far out of your mind when you're living a great life or doing whatever you're doing and not paying attention to oh, anything bad can happen. And you start thinking everything's under control with humanity. Well, it turns out once COVID came in, I was able to sit in my house for a month. Didn't have to leave because I had food stocked up. I had everything you needed stocked up, from toilet paper to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, water. I bought filters, and because the things that are coming with this Biden administration, people thought it was bad before. It's going to get worse and worse. When New Year's came, people were like, "Oh, yay, 2020 is over. It's going to be so great." It's gotten worse. 2021 is worse than 2020. And you're going to see throughout the year the price of things and the amount of food, the prices of food going up to the point where there's going to be millions of Americans that are starving. There's going to be many homeless people. There's going to be the markets crashing and people losing their savings, losing their IRAs and retirement funds. These are all realities, and I don't mean to scare anybody or sound so pessimistic, but when you pay attention to reality and the facts and things that go around you, and you study things from, I suggest people start studying economics. Once you get into economics, it really gives you a whole nother view of the world and how it functions. And that's very important. I have people on my Facebook and everywhere else challenging me, and then I bring up facts and they have nothing to say because they never thought of that, because they never looked that far into economics. I try to avoid posting anything that is just opinion, although opinion does seem to leak in here and there, but I can try to back things up with facts, and I think that's very important for everyone to kind of look into. One of the best things you can do is, like I said, try to stock up on food. Take a percentage of your money and convert it into assets, try to limit spending to a degree, although, it's kind of what they're trying to avoid with all these stimulus packages. But what other choices do people have? Um, there's so much going on with unemployment and people not getting jobs, and uh, it's it's really important for people to look into what makes the world function and turn. I called the semiconductor shortage a year before it even happened. How did I do that? It's not magic. There's no secret information that only I can obtain. All these things are out there. You just have to look for it and search for it, and it's really important to pay attention. Um, I don't want to make this video too long because it's good if people pay attention to, and retain their attention to the videos. Um, Anything you want to know about or any questions, just put in the comment below, because not only am I going to try to answer it, but I'm going to do some research. And I have a dedicated team of researchers and reporters and editors that we're going to start a whole new news program, because we need to start a whole new generation of news, honest news, because corporate media and corporate news, they don't care about anyone but themselves and their agenda. So please just like and subscribe if you can. I'll try to keep you as updated as possible about what's going on. And I think it's really important. And there's going to be a whole brand new news source coming out, and we're going to try to do the best we can. So it's already been about 16 minutes, and I think I want to leave it there for now and keep them short. But please, any questions, say it, and I'll try to cover them. Thank you, and have a great day.